All right, I'm going to try something new that I haven't done before. We're going to do a poll. I built a poll. We'll see if how it works. I've never used them before on this. I even looked in doing a Kahoot thing, but it limited me to 3 participants for their trial program, and that doesn't work. It's going to cost me a couple $100. So I'm going to try it this way first. I want to commend Jake for drinking so much water. Good boy. Sorry. I don't know why I started the recording just to observe that, but it is kind of funny what we see on recordings. By the way, can I share a funny story, Jake, since we're already way off because of my ADD?
It's not about me.
It's not about you. You were involved in it. I did a training once on Thursday, so it was an agent from somewhere. I don't know who it was. And it was so hard for me to focus on the training because this agent was just digging for gold, and he had his camera on and he's up to his second knuckle in his nose, just going to town. He did it for like 10 minutes and I'm trying so hard to focus and I can't. I'm losing track of my thoughts because this guy is doing his thing. Anyways, I had to send that video to Jake, and I'm like, Jake, I posted this video. We need to pull it down. And can you please edit this guy out? Because it is not fair to him to do this. So, anyways, that's the magic of these Zoom videos and how I get distracted with Jake drinking water. But if you do plan on doing something like that when I'm recording, it's a good idea to simply click the stop video button. And I suppose this is a good time to mention that you have full control over your audio as well. So if you're going to have a fight with your spouse or a private conversation with a client, that's a good time where you could mute yourself. But if you do want to interact, you can always unmute. And I do love it when you share video with me because it's really hard for me to sit here and stare at 9 blank screens. I feel like the Brady Bunch where the family got divorced and everybody left. And anyways, can you imagine how the Brady Bunch would be if it just auto-populated that screen and there's just one person there? That wouldn't be fun, you guys. So I do appreciate you guys, participating. Thanks, Alan, for the demonstration. That ages you so bad. Actually knowing those details.
Gen X and proud, baby. Bring it on.
Yep. Anyways, thank you for those of you that are willing to share because it makes this whole thing easier. So I want to, where we're pulling from today, sometimes for our deep dives, we go into different forms. I'm happy to do that. If you guys ever share, say, hey, I'd like to see this one. I will give you an idea or a hint for an upcoming one that I've already seen the sneak preview for the changes to the purchase contract. They're making changes to the exclusive buyer broker agreement and exclusive right to sell listing agreements because of this NAR settlement. So I've seen those sneak previews, but they've specifically said on those, this isn't for public consumption yet. So I'm not going to put those out there and do a training on them until they're actually released. They have to go through some final approval stages. So there's no sense doing a training on something that may or may not be finally approved, but that will be up and coming. I have a lot of agents still that are like, hey, what do you think is going to happen? Don't bother with conjecture, guys. Okay. We have what we have right now. No laws have changed. No rules have changed. Operate in the now. But I do commend you for coming to these trainings because the now, just like Alan talked about with the interest rates, it's going to be volatile. Okay, we are going to see some changes and you need to be plugged into them. So one of the takeaways is don't be saving those forms on your desktop for easy access. The exclusive buyer broker, exclusive right to sell, and even the purchase contract. Don't save those on your desktop for easy access. Make sure that you are accessing those from the MLS. Some of you are filling them out from .loop. I am recommending against that because .loop always takes 2 or 3 weeks to change. And state law does require us to use the most up-to-date forms. So, and some of these, again, the real estate purchase contract is a form that is provided by the Division of Real Estate. So I'm going to share my screen with you and we're going to go on a little trip. Okay, you see We're just looking at Google now, right? Give me a thumbs up if that's what you're seeing. Yeah, okay. So a lot of people don't know where to search for these things, and I want to show you where. Usually you can call me and ask me if you have legal questions, but if you want to, because you're a nerd like me, and well, for me, it's my job. It's not just because I'm a nerd. But you can go to the Division of Real Estate's website, and this is typically where you would go to Realms. This is realestate.utah.gov. This is typically where you would go to Realms and log into your own account, right? But if you scroll down just a little bit and you click on this real estate button, now you have access to a few other things. So some of the fun things is, let's see, we've got the actual law. If you want to go in and read law, I think under enforcement, yeah, that's where you get access to that newsletter. So usually when the new newsletter comes out, I'll do a little video on it and post it to the YouTube channel, the Elite Agent Training YouTube channel. And you can go in there and read about the latest fines and, you know, things that people are running up against. And the Division of Real Estate tends to go in waves. It's almost like the highway patrol on a holiday weekend. All of a sudden you'll notice 12 different highway patrol vehicles out there, right? The division seems to do that with different parts of the law. They tend to zero in on one and then start cracking down on one of those things. So anyways, today what we're pulling from is the administrative rules. If you've never been in before and read this since you took your real estate licensing class, you really have to scroll down about almost half of the way before you get into things that are pertinent to you. And that's where we get into affirmative duties. If you're looking at all this stuff that I've skipped, it's a lot of things about, for example, reporting a change of information. You've got certifications of pre-licensed course instructor. So there's nearly half of the law that isn't really pertinent to you. Certification of a CE course, certification of pre-licensing course. So all of this stuff really isn't super interesting to you, right? But you get down about halfway through that law, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of things that are interesting to you. And that's what we're going to pull from today. So we're going to see how this works. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to go to polls and see if we can relaunch this poll. Now this is going to be, I've got 10 different questions on here. You guys get to give your answer, and we'll see how it works. So relaunching the poll, clear existing polling results. Do you want to continue? Yes. All right. Do y'all see those questions popping up on your screen? I've never done this before. Yeah? Are you guys able to answer them? Okay. I'm not able to. I apparently don't get to play, which makes me sad.
Good thing I'm not a realtor because I'm failing this already.
When you answer one, does it go on? Tell me how this works. You answer, is it pulling up one at a time for you and you answer it and then it pulls up the next one?
You have to hit next and then it, or does, yeah, I don't remember.
Okay. Give me a thumbs up or something when you're done, and then we can have a discussion. So I'm going to wait for, again, down at the bottom, there's a reaction thing. You can do a like a thumbs up or something when you're done. Let me know when you're done. I think I've got 2 people done. If I'm all right. Some of these are a little bit trick questions, but it looks like most of them you're all getting right. We'll have a fun discussion either way.
Only you can see what we got.
Can you guys not see? I don't know. I've never done this before.
I answered the questions and then they didn't, I guess, they just flipped up the next question, so I didn't see what the results were.
Okay. Well, look.
I noticed on some of the questions you could answer, you could put 2 answers or multiple answers.
Like I said, this is the first time I've done it. I was gonna try to do it with Kahoots. You guys have played Kahoots? So I might look into that, but it cost me almost $300 a year to do that. So
Kahoots is fun because you can kind of see the progress, if I remember right. Can't you? How things are coming
Yeah.
and where things are at. So yeah, that's kind
yeah,
of fun.
Kahoots is fun. I've never tried this before either. So I've got 7 of 11 that have finished this.
Do you know who is attached to each one, or
Nope.
this just brings it in? Okay.
No, so it's pretty anonymous even to me. Okay, there's 8 out of 11.
Kind of like 7.5 because somehow I lost it when I checked on my screen. It disappeared after the second or third question. So, and I don't want to look bad anyway as a broker, right? Like if I screw that one up. So
Like I said, it seems to me like it's totally anonymous. So I don't see who's answering. I just see that 8 out of right now, 8 out of 11 have finished it. Or is there people still working on it, or should we move on? Is anybody still working on it? Rebecca, does the raised hand mean you're working on it or you're finished?
I'm done.
You're done?
How are you?
Okay. I've had people text me saying that it's good to move on. So let's go ahead. I'm going to end the poll. Now we can share results. So I don't know what sharing results does. Okay, what do you see here? Just the questions? But you don't see whether, I mean, I think you know if you got it right or not, right? But it doesn't
Yeah.
show, there's no public shaming here.
No.
We see the questions and the answers.
Okay, so let's use this for our discussion platform then. So one of the reasons we talk about why I like talking about fiduciary duty is because I think in some ways it's misunderstood. If we go back to the law here and we scroll back down to, oh, we got to get past the CEs, all the boring stuff. Okay, affirmative duties. This is where it talks about, starts out talking about fiduciary duty. All right, so it's this very first section. And so obviously this first question, everybody got it right. What is fiduciary duty of loyalty? To place the principal's interests above all others, right? And these are pretty obvious. We're not going to prioritize the brokerage's interests. We're not going to share all information with the other agents. But what it means to place the principal's interests above all others, that includes ourselves too. And so when we're talking about this in a framework of today, I want to move this screen so I can see you guys. One of the ways this is going to come into play today, and especially in coming months, is we are pulling up listings for our clients to see, right? Which ones do we send to our clients? There's one that's offering us a 3% commission. And quite frankly, in coming months, we won't see anything offered on the MLS, but we're going to see it on other websites. One's offering us a 3% commission. One isn't mentioning any commission at all. One's mentioning $1. What do we share with our clients? And you can unmute yourselves unless there's like potential background knowledge or whatever. And let's make this more interactive here. What are we sharing with our clients? Eric?
Well, everything. Everything that comes up. Everything that comes up.
But what about your commission, Eric? I mean, you have a right to get paid.
Well, supposedly that's going to be taken care of in your contract with the client.
Okay, so this is what it comes down to. Have we done our job correctly prior to this, right? And by having done our job correctly, what I mean is, have we already sat down with our client and had this discussion with them? Have we done a presentation where we have communicated all of our value, where they understand how much we're going to get paid? Have we filled out an exclusive buyer broker agreement, which I've been teaching this for 20 years to be doing. But now the rules are saying, with this agreement, you've got to have this signed before you go out showing homes. You've got to have some form of agreement signed before you go out showing homes. And realtors are pushing back a lot on this, saying, oh, well, that's so hard. And maybe we can just have a little agreement to show homes, not actually an agreement to get paid. I'm like, why are we fighting this so hard? Sit down, communicate your value, and make sure that they understand that you are going to get paid. By the way, make sure when you fill out the exclusive buyer broker agreement that you put down your commission amount. And if that's 3%, great. If it's 2%, great. But what if you've put down 1%? Like, I'm willing to work as low as 1%. And then you find an offer of compensation that's 3%. Can you get paid the 3%? And we've talked about this in the past, but right now it's looking, and I've heard the UAR attorneys do a training that are contrary to this, but it's looking the way Brad Belke, who's the CEO of the MLS, and I think he's a little bit more plugged in than anybody to this, because this is directly affecting the way they do things. But he's saying if you've agreed to an offer of compensation in your exclusive buyer broker agreement of 1%, and somebody's offering you 3%, you're not allowed to take more than 1%. You said right up front, I'm willing to work for 1%. That doesn't allow you to take more. Now, again, this may change, but right now I want you to be in the frame of mind that says, when I sit down with somebody and communicate my value, and I say I expect 3% or 2% or 2.5%, whatever you put there should be and probably will be what you're capped at. So you've sat down, you've had that conversation, say, you know, I expect this much. And this is why I'm worth it. These are all the services that I'm going to be doing for you. And then when, you know, when we go back to this question here, when we've got an offering, we've got a client that's looking for homes and we've got 3 different offerings of commission, we can now correctly apply our fiduciary duty of loyalty. We can show our client everything because their interest is not contingent on how much we're getting paid. They want to see every house out there. And then they're making an educated choice. If I buy this house, I've got to negotiate to have this commission paid for my agent, or I get to pay this commission myself versus this other house where I don't have to pay anything because they're already making this offer of compensation. Now your client is educated not only on how you get paid, but on if they're considering one home versus another home, they're educated about how that plays out for them financially. But it all comes down to you having had that conversation with them up front, doing a buyer presentation, helping them understand how you get paid, what you get paid, and how that can play out with the negotiations later on. If you don't have those things done in place first, then you put yourself at a severe risk of violating state law with this very basic concept of loyalty. Well, I'm not going to show this home because I'm not getting paid. That's not correct, right? Now I've got a couple hands up, Rebecca and then Randall. I'm not sure if you had questions or comments, or Rebecca, you were first.
Sorry, it was still up from before.
Oh, no
I
worries. Randall,
finished.
did
So
you
I
have
was
a
gonna-
comment on this?
Yeah, part of the fiduciary duty on this is letting the client know that they're gonna be responsible for paying you if you can't negotiate something where the seller is going to cover your fees. Now, obviously, we're gonna submit the request for more commission and everything else. But potentially that the buyer could be held liable, because we're gonna show them all the properties, right? Absolutely 100% correct.
Yep.
However, if we get to closing and the buyer says, okay, what is this $15,000 that I'm having to come up with, Part of fiduciary duty, like you said, is clarifying it beforehand. And I would say, there's a lot of information there. I would say it also means clarifying it at the time you show them the property as well. And, making sure that they've got top of mind awareness of what's happening with the commission so that they don't get blindsided. Absolutely.
This is one of those things where, thank you, Randall. This is one of those things where this change in the rules is going to force us to be better at communicating, right? And the agents that shy away from this because they're either uneducated or they're poor negotiators or whatever, the agents that shy away from this have a very good chance of going out of business. The agents that embrace it have a very good chance of actually increasing their market share, of increasing their business. So we've got a lot of agents out there like, oh no, this is scary. I'm going to get out of the business. Like, this is going to change everything. It's going to change everything for the worse for people that don't know how to present themselves and present their value, but it's going to make everything better. Like, I really think you're going to make more money in this coming market if you embrace these changes and learn how to better present yourself and better communicate that value. It also means that we're having better conversations with our sellers because we have an opportunity now when we're filling out our listing agreement to say, hey, seller, put yourself in a buyer's shoes. And again, we've gone over this form before where this is the form that Equity created for you, that underrepresented buyer form, and it's in the under contract packet in .loop. This gives you an opportunity to say, all right, sellers, let's say that you're a buyer and you don't have anybody representing you. Not only are, you know, like if we don't offer this offer of compensation to a buyer's agent, then we're reducing our visibility. We're having a buyer that isn't represented potentially. And these are all the challenges that they're going to face and the likelihood of this deal getting across the finish line when there's nobody helping them find good lenders, good inspectors, you know, all the things that they might need. There's nobody helping them with a valuation. There's nobody helping them when that inspection is done to negotiate any repairs that they might want. Yeah, Eric.
So what happens when, I mean, so you have a client like that, a buyer that's unrepresented. Your fiduciary duty is to your seller, but it's also your fiduciary duty to get that buyer to make that deal work as best you can, which might mean for you to offer some assistance to that buyer, right?
Yeah, but did you see the form that we created?
I probably didn't. Otherwise, I might not be asking this, I guess.
So let me log in here. And I'll share my screen with you. So if you go to .loop, I'll pull up my test client. And, oh, I've actually got it in here, but I'll show you where to find it, okay? So we're going to use a template. We're going to go to under contract forms. And it's the third one down here, equity unrepresented buyer disclosure. So we have created this form for you. I'm not going to add it because I've already got it in here. We've created this form for you. And this is not just to inform the unrepresented buyer, but it's also to inform the real estate agent. Hey, these are the things we can do and the things we cannot do. Now I've done this I think I did this in a deep dive a month ago, but this is a form that we had our attorneys create in anticipation of the challenges that this new ruling is going to bring. And so, Eric, what you said is exactly right. We're representing the sellers. But in the seller's best interest, we want this deal to get across the finish line, right? So we want to help the buyers, but we are limited by law. And primarily it's this concept of limited agency, or agency by implication, rather, that there's certain things we can't do. If they choose to be unrepresented, then you have an interest, or you have a responsibility to your client, but you also have a responsibility to yourself and to the brokerage, where you just need to understand how the law works, that you can't do certain things without creating agency by implication. You're pretending to be the buyer's agent, and the buyer needs to understand if they're going to proceed unrepresented, there's certain things that will not happen, right? So as much as you want to help your client out, you're not going to provide market information to that buyer. Well, here's my comps. This is where we got this value. You're not going to do that because now you're acting as their agent, which creates liability for you. And you disclose that to them right up front. You say, this is what I won't be doing. You're not going to be helping them fill out the offer. You can provide them with a blank state-approved real estate purchase contract. And how you would do that is just give them the link to the Division of Real Estate website. Here's your basic forms. You can download them yourself, but you're going to have to fill them out yourself. Well, what if I have questions filling them out? Sorry, hire an attorney. Or we can do limited agency, or we can have somebody else from the office help you out, you know, and we can do it for a reduced fee, but we do not work for free. And so you coming in saying, hey, I'm making a full price offer on this $500,000 home, and full price means $485, because I'm automatically deducting 3% commission that would normally go to a buyer's agent. This is your chance to educate them and say, no, you're not a full price offer at $485. You're actually increasing our risk of this deal falling apart because you don't know what you're doing. So you don't automatically get a 3% reduction in the purchase price because you're choosing to do this work yourself. In fact, we may raise the price on you because you represent a higher risk than somebody that comes along that is represented, right? We're not going to help you in meeting your deadlines. We're not going to help you in your due diligence. We're not going to recommend inspectors, lenders, appraisers, title companies for you to use. All of these different things that a real estate agent is involved in. We're not helping you with that. We're not going to hold your earnest money. We're not going to review seller's disclosures or the title commitment with you. So none of those things, the CC&Rs, the bylaws, we'll dump a 100-page document on you, these CC&Rs. It's up to you to review them. And of course, we're not going to negotiate on your behalf. Please sign here saying that you're going to, that you know you're going to be doing all of this stuff on your own. Okay, this is much more comprehensive than the current form that the UAR has created for us, which simply says buyer's agents have fiduciary duty to a buyer. Listing agents have fiduciary duty to a seller. This actually explains what that means. Okay, this fiduciary duty. And so, Eric, your question is a great question. What does that mean I can and can't do? Well, there's your list. So you have that discussion with a buyer. And I've actually have agents already taking that out and having that discussion with sellers and saying, hey, this is why we offer an offer of compensation to a buyer's agent. Because without a buyer's agent being involved, either I have to do those things and then it's limited agency, or nobody's doing those things and our odds of getting that deal across the finish line drop substantially. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is why I charge a 6% commission and offer 3% of that to a buyer's agent, or a 5% or whatever you negotiate, right? Okay, so let's move on to our second one, fiduciary duty of obedience. Now, we had some people say, and I think this is where it was a trick question, to follow lawful instructions from any client or from the principal. The answer is from the principal, right? That's the correct answer. We're obviously not following lawful instructions from the other party's client. We're just lawful instructions from the principal. Now, this is important that we only follow lawful instructions. So if we are working for a seller and they say, you know what, I don't want you to tell the other party about this foundational crack or this staining in the ceiling, don't worry about, I'll have that painted over by the time we do showings. Well, we can't just paint over it. It's an indication of a water leak, you know, like we can't just hide the problem. Now, what if there were no real estate agent involved? Could they then paint over it? And because I've had people say they don't want to hire an agent because then these laws all apply to them. Is that the case? If there's not an agent involved, can we just paint over that water stain in the ceiling and move on and we're fine? No, what we've done is committed fraud there. And when that home, you know, when the next big rainstorm comes in and that starts to leak and somebody climbs up in the roof and says, hey, there's all this sign of previous water damage. These people must have known about it. You get that documented. You get to take that person to court and you get a win, whether or not there was an agent involved. And so we're only following lawful instructions. And part of our job, our fiduciary duty here, is educating our client as to what the law states, right? We can't just paint over this. What about, however, when we're representing the buyer? So we've got material facts have to be disclosed, but we always think material facts apply to the seller. What are material facts when we're representing a buyer? Here's a material fact. Earnest money didn't get deposited by day 4. Is that material? Hey, I just found out my client can't perform on the loan. Right? That's actually identified. Now there are other ways they can get financing, but if their inability, not performing on the loan, maybe their ability to perform on the contract. Sorry, that's the actual law, is the ability to perform on the contract. So if we didn't get earnest money turned in by day 4, then that's a material fact that we must present. So that when we talk about fiduciary duty, confidentiality is one of those things. That's one of the aspects of fiduciary duty, but it doesn't mean that we hide material facts, whether we're working for the seller or for the buyer. All right, so here we are under full disclosure. A licensee must inform the principal of any material facts about the other party or the transaction, general market conditions, the licensee's commission rates. In this case, the answer is B. We have to disclose to our principal any material facts about the other party or the transaction. So that's what we were just talking about. The ability to perform on the transaction is a material fact that has to be disclosed. Now, this is saying we're disclosing it to our principal, but there's also material facts must be disclosed to the other party as well. All right, let's talk about limited agency. You all got this right. Before acting under a limited agency agreement, we need to obtain prior informed consent in writing from both principals. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting this is because just this last week, I was helping Tammy, right? And we got an offer from another equity agent, not in our office, but somebody that does a lot of business, right? They're one of the highest, in fact, if you look at their marketing, they are the highest performing equity agent company-wide. Okay, according to their own marketing. And when they submitted this offer, could we have accepted it as it was written? It did not have a limited agency agreement in there. Let's say we loved all their terms, exactly what we're looking for. Could we have signed acceptance?
No.
No, not according to the law, because the law says we obtain prior informed consent from both principals. Both people have to know this is a limited agency situation. And again, it is limited agency if it's an equity agent anywhere in the state. We're all under one principal broker. Okay. And by the way, this agent didn't know that. Highest performing agent in all of equity, company-wide, not just in Utah, company-wide, according to his own marketing. And he wasn't aware of this. Maybe he's so busy he's not attending trainings. So I come back to you guys and I commend you for attending trainings because you guys know this stuff, right? So we had to counter. And of course, in our counter, we used the limited agency addendum and we got it under contract, right, Tammy? Woohoo! Hopefully it closes. Okay. So when we are a limited agent, what do we have to disclose in writing? Now, the answer was C, the types of information that will be held confidential. Now, a lot of you guessed the potential conflicts of interest. But this is the correct answer. The types of information that will be held confidential and what will be disclosed. So limited agency, we're not disclosing potential conflicts of interest. Now, granted, it kind of does that if we're well, actually what does it is when it's limited agency and we're also representing a family member or we're licensed ourselves, right? And the law says, it further clarifies that we cannot be a limited agent and a principal in a transaction. It says that. But can we be a limited agent and represent our mom? We're listing our mom's home. Can we also represent the buyer? Yeah. But then we have to use that disclosure of interest addendum. And that's what really informs about the potential conflicts of interest. Right? But the limited agency in itself is simply saying, hey, here's the fiduciary duty. And it's all of these things. It's confidentiality, it's, it's full disclosure. And because you're choosing limited agency, we can't be fully confidential. We can't fully disclose everything either. Like I know stuff about the buyer and I know stuff about the seller that I can't disclose any longer because we're going limited agent. So that's what the limited agency form is about. The potential conflicts of interest really more comes about with the disclosure of interest addendum. Okay. We all clear on that? All right. If we're making an offer on a property as a principal, you all got this right. We must disclose our status and role in the transaction. So we have to disclose right up front, we're a licensed agent. Now, this is one of those things that is kind of, I don't really like how it comes into play in real life, because some agencies say you can be a for sale by owner, right? You can represent yourself and it doesn't have to go through the brokerage. And that's their brokerage policy. You can represent yourself and it doesn't have to go through the brokerage. But Equity's policy is, if you're ever representing yourself, and so we've got, Randall's the investor king. He's representing himself on all of these deals where he is the principal in the transaction. But state law says that we have to disclose that we're a licensed agent. Can you be a for sale by owner and a licensed agent? I mean, aren't you always representing yourself? My argument is you can't. You can't be a for sale by owner because you're always representing yourself and you're always a licensed agent.
You have to disclose it. If that's what you're saying, Aaron.
Yeah. I mean, you're disclosing I'm a licensed agent. As such, you're not unrepresented. And so anyways, our policy in Equity says, and by the way, one of our ugliest lawsuits has gone on for over 2 years in a different office, not mine, not Randall's. It's in a different office. It's still ongoing. And I have to get deposed for it here in a few weeks. And I'm like, I don't even have it. I don't know anything about this. It's not my agent. It's a different, but still, this is what attorneys do. And we're well into multiple tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees on this. It's with an agent doing their own deal. Right? And they're like, hey, I wasn't even, I didn't even run this through the brokerage. It wasn't even a real estate transaction. It was me doing my own thing. I'm not even running it through the brokerage. Anyways, we're spending as a company over $20,000 because it was a licensed agent doing their own deal. We don't have a file on it. So when we have this policy that says we need a file for everything that you do, it's because there's legal reasons to back that up. And just because you have to disclose that you're licensed in the transaction means that if that transaction goes to court, we're going to get named in it. So we need a file, and we're going to charge our minimum fees, $5.99, because by law you have to declare that you're a licensed agent under us. So we're dragged into it. All right. So I put that one in there to make sure that you guys understand that even if you are just representing yourself, we need a file, and here's why: because of state law. Okay. All right. What's required of a licensee when offering a property for sale in terms of square footage data? This is a question I get all the time. What do I need to disclose? And everybody got it right. Disclosure of the source. Where are you getting your numbers from? Now, you'll notice that because of state law, this is, by the way, all of these questions are pulled from state law, but you'll notice that our forms committee for the Utah Association of Realtors have made it easy for us. And a lot of the forms that we use are used for this reason, because the attorneys have gone in and said, hey, state law requires this of all of our agents. Our forms should probably have that. So if you notice in your listing agreement, that's one of the things in your listing agreement is a disclosure of where we got our square footage measurements, because it's required by law. So therefore, the UAR attorneys in the exclusive right to sell listing agreement, which is, by the way, not a state approved form. It's a form created by the UAR, copyrighted by the UAR. It helps you be in compliance with the law. And it says, oh, we got our square footage from county records. We got it from another appraisal. What is one source that we'll never get it from? Us walking around the property with a measuring tape, right? That is one source that we will never get it from, is us with a measuring tape walking around the property. You can hire appraisers to just measure the property. You can do that. It's cheap, okay? They don't charge very much to just go out and measure. So if you're not sure of the square footage, I had a question, I can't remember who it was from. Might have been one of you guys. No offense if this was you, and I don't remember, but I think it was yesterday it came up. And it said, hey, we've got an appraisal right here, but this is what kind, oh no, it's not one of you. I remembered who it is. It's one of our agents down in Cedar. Said, we've got an appraisal. This is what county records say. Which one can I use? I said, use the appraisal. It's right there. And all we have to do is show that we've got it. Now, the full question, we've got to disclose it in the listing agreement, and we've also got to disclose it to the buyer. And where is it disclosed to the buyer? Where we got our measurements from?
The property disclosures.
Yeah, it's in the property disclosure form. Again, a form created for us by the UAR attorneys. So you guys don't even realize when we're using all of these things, all of these forms are made by attorneys who have gone through the law in detail and said, oh, we should probably include this in our standard forms because this protects our agents and helps them be compliant with the law. All right. Upon initial contact with another agent in a transaction, we're always disclosing. We had one person say financial benefits from the transaction. We're disclosing our agency relationship with our client. Hi, Randall. I'm representing Tammy today. You know, here's our offer. I'm representing myself. Here's our offer. We're always disclosing that we're a licensed agent in the transaction. We never pose to be unlicensed. Does that make sense? And again, a lot of this comes into play when I'm representing myself. I never get to pose as an unlicensed person. So I'm always disclosing agency relationship, and I do that right up front. By the way, sometimes people, when they're doing for sell by owner marketing, they use this underhanded tactic. They pretend to be an interested buyer to approach that for sell by owner. And I don't know that the law is necessarily representing that, but it's not a good strategy to use. If you've ever heard that strategy used where you pretend to be a buyer to go out and meet a seller. I've heard from lots of for sale by owners that agents have been trying that, and it doesn't go over well. When you finally, pull back the curtain and say, oh, by the way, I'm a licensed agent. I'm really here just to get your business. Okay. Before executing a binding purchase agreement, this is before we sign acceptance on a real estate purchase contract, a licensee must confirm the agency disclosure where? By the way, state law. We have to disclose who the agents are, and where do we do that in the purchase contract? How do we fulfill this law? Now, the purchase contract is a state approved form. This isn't created by the UAR attorneys.
I don't remember what section it is, but it's
Section.
something like this. Thank you. Go ahead. Whoever knows what section it is.
5.
Thank you.
Section 5, it's page 2, and it just says, hey, here's the buyer's agent, here's the buyer's brokerage, here's the listing agent, here's the listing brokerage. Another reason why I encourage agents to fill this out on the MLS, save it as a PDF and incorporate it into .loop from there, is because when you pull this up in .loop, does it pull up the license numbers for the agency and the brokerages? It doesn't autofill that information for you in .loop. Okay, it will autofill it for you if you're filling out the purchase contract on the MLS. If you're filling it out on .loop, it doesn't autofill that information, and that information is required by law. Okay, so when you're writing a purchase contract, I do recommend fill it out in the MLS, save it as a PDF, pull it into .loop for signatures, because then it autofills that information that you need in order to be current with the law. All right, when you get earnest money, when you receive money in a real estate transaction, earnest money, you're supposed to deliver it immediately to your broker. Now, again, our policy, and the reason I put this question in here is our policy is to hold it with the title company. But the key thing here is that we're not sitting around holding people's money, right? Number one, we never touch cash because cash is hard to have a paper trail for. And somebody says, oh no, I gave you $1,200 and you only turned in $1,000. You must have pocketed $200. It's really hard to defend yourself if somebody wants to, like if they're going in with nefarious intent, it's really hard to defend yourself with cash. With a check, there's paper trails, right? One of the great things about holding it with title is we don't touch it at all. like the best practice there is say, all right, we're under contract. Congratulations. Yay. You've got 4 days to get the earnest money turned in. Here's the title company location closest to you. Can you have that turned in by tomorrow? You know, maybe on your way to work or something. Today or tomorrow. Let's get it turned in today or tomorrow. Right? Do we want to wait till day 4? Why don't we want to wait till day 4?
Something always comes up.
Because what if
Yeah.
it's a holiday and you forgot?
Yeah.
it's the
What if it
weekend.
comes up? What if it's holiday? What if the check doesn't clear? Has anybody had a client's check bounce? And if that happens, Randall's like, yep, I have too. What if that happens on day 4? Title company calls you on day 5, say, hey, we got a problem with your client's check. Check didn't clear. You call your client up, they're like, ah, dang it. You know, I just got paid today. I just got paid yesterday. I'll get that new money put in there. What do we have now? We have a new material fact
A breach.
defined by law that we now have to disclose. Right? This is not covered under confidentiality. Let me go back and share my screen with you so that you don't think that I'm let's see. Full disclosure, which obligates the agent to inform the principal of any material fact about the other party or the transaction. Confidentiality, which prohibits the agent from disclosing without permission any information given to the agent, but accepting any known material fact concerning. So in other words, we can be confidential, but that does not include defects in the property or the client's ability to perform on the contract. So what that means is that we have now failed to perform on the contract. We said in the contract, earnest money would be turned in by day 4. And guys, this comes up all the time. Agents calling me saying, hey, I think I stepped in it. I said that we would collect the earnest money. We're on day 10. I've been trying to get my client to turn in that earnest money, and I couldn't get them to, and now they're canceling. My first question is always, did you tell the other party, did you tell the listing agent on day 5 that you hadn't collected earnest money? Well, no, I've been trying hard to, for the last 5 days, and it's now day 10. I've been trying hard, but I haven't disclosed it. That's where you're putting yourself at risk. Your client's failure to perform, that's on your client. But you can get dragged into this. You can have liability because you hid that fact, and it's a material fact about your client's ability to perform. You actively hid that, which is against the law. Okay. So by day 5, you call up your client and say, hey, your check didn't clear. I don't have your check. You're not responding to me. At this point, I have no choice under the law, but I have to disclose that we don't have earnest money. And by the way, I'm going to put that in writing too. I'm going to call my client. I'm going to have the conversation. And I'm going to put it in an email so that I've got a paper trail. Because otherwise they could potentially come back on me saying, you colluded with this, like you should have disclosed all of this. And now we got issues. So you're having these discussions right up front, and we can avoid a lot of these problems by saying, hey, it's day 1. Let's get it turned in immediately. Here's the title company location. Let me know when you've dropped it off. Randall?
Okay, one of the things that I do, it doesn't work if you have an iPhone, but I record all phone calls, because sometimes you're driving down the road and you're talking to somebody, and you haven't, been able to put it into to an email or something, but I use Cube ACR. iPhones don't have any recording apps for recording calls. People have to opt in or whatever, but in Utah, you only have to have one party approval, and that's me. As long as one party on the phone is aware that the call is being recorded. And it's also useful if you're driving down the road and somebody gives you an address to go look at, or a client. But I've had that happen a number of times where I've agreed with something, on the phone. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to get the money over to title or whatever it is that we're going to do. And people in the past have later on have said, well, no, we never said that. I never said that. And I even have one of the investigators at the Division of Real Estate who had claimed that she had done several wholesales and, you know, wasn't against it. And then I went to the commission meeting and she said, well, and I mentioned that she said, well, I never said that. I've never done a wholesale. I said, shall I play minute 132? You know, where you're telling us that you have done wholesales, in fact. So just maybe as a tool, that one's pretty useful, but it's called Cube ACR.
Okay. Thanks, Randall. Yeah, I've got a couple of agents that have been sued before, and they're now in the habit of recording everything like that as well. One of the things, if you do have an iPhone, you're like, hey, I'm a loyal iPhone user, I'm going to always use my iPhone. And Randall just said there's no easy recording app for that. If you had that conversation, just say, okay, I'm going to send you an email, like I'm driving right now, but I'm going to send you an email when I get back to my desk, just reiterating this conversation. Now, one of the ways that you can do that, especially if it's something that is a little touchy. And by the way, if you know that you're going into a meeting, like again, with the Division of Real Estate or something like that, you probably have an attorney present, but I've been there with attorneys and we didn't record it and I regretted it later. You know, you can just say, hey, I'm recording this, and you can, even on an iPhone, you can start recording the conversation. But Randall put it in the comments there. Cube ACR is the app. But if it's a conversation and you can't record it, just say, hey, to your client, I'm going to send you an email reiterating this conversation so that we've got it in writing. And if you want to keep a record of that, you can do that in .loop. So if I'll share my screen really quick and show you how to do that. And the nice thing about .loop is it keeps a permanent record of that. So if I go to people here and I've got my test client, I can click this and I can send a message here. And that is saved as a permanent fixture in this loop that I can always go back and it's time stamped and everything. And so it's a great way to protect yourself. Otherwise, you know, you can send it in Gmail and then later on do a search and try to find it. But this way, if anything's starting to get, you know, taking a turn for the nasty, I recommend going into .loop and saying, hey, just per our conversation earlier today. And then you've got a record of it. All right, you guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to stop the recording.